I know, but then that's a Yemen argument. There's like, oh, that country is so lost. No point in sending any missionaries over there. They're just going to get eaten.
Yemen's not fully cannibals. You know that, right?
Welcome back to Sermon Rewind. My name is Todd, and with me is Jordan.
Good to see you. Glad
How you
to
doing?
be here. I'm well, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. What you don't see behind the scenes sometimes is us. We do a lot of sort of ramp up to this sometimes.
Playful
right?
banter.
Playful banter, as it were. That's okay. We want this to be real.
True.
Right? I'm just a guy. I'm asking you questions about the sermon. And so I don't know if people get that in the video or not, but
I'm sure they do.
To a certain extent.
I hope so.
All right. So we are in Advent, the season of Advent. The theme of the series is Advent, What Are You Waiting For? And this week's sermon title was Faith. Nice one-word, succinct title, simple. Text was Matthew 25, verses 1 to 13. And your big idea, which you called a proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Are you switching it up?
It's the same thing.
Did I miss this last week? Was
No.
it called a proposal last week? No?
It bounces back and forth.
Okay. All right. So your proposal this week. The coming of Jesus provides good reason to live a life of radical faith.
Mm-hmm.
And you also use the word otherworldly.
Yeah.
I hate to be nitpicky right off the bat, but good reason, not great reason, not amazing reason, it's just good.
I'm shocked that bothers you.
No, it doesn't bother me
Yeah.
at all. I mean, it's a fairly strong statement.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that we can't necessarily capture the grandeur of the gospel message with our words sometimes.
Yeah.
That's something that but I don't know, that stood out to me, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. It's more about sort of thinking through the idea, and we'll get to this in a second, that we want this to be something that really just shakes us, right?
Yeah.
But we'll come back to that. In your first point, you said, does the coming of Jesus motivate you to live a faithful life?
Yep. Nailed it.
Nailed it. Thank you. Yes, I can take notes. Let's start there. Pragmatically, what does that look like? Because I'll pull the question back a second, then I'll throw it back to you. Faithful life for people oftentimes is rituals, activities, continue to show up, that sort of thing. You've mentioned this a number of times. Showing up for a weekly worship service. Great, you're here. That's not the faithful life, right? What does it look like for us to live a faithful life? Pragmatically.
Yeah. I think so I think what's important about even talking about faith with regard to the way we live it out, I think it's important for people to be able to dissect the difference between faith in action and faith and belief. Because oftentimes people would say, well, yeah, I do live a faithful Christian life, right? I believe these things about Jesus. Therefore, that equates to faithful life. But faith is articulated in the scriptures as the evidence of things hoped for and unseen. It's a real tangible experiential thing that can be visibly seen and evaluated from the outside looking in. So to live a faithful life means there's certain characteristics that show up in the way that you live out your day-to-day life that screams to an evaluating audience that there is something particularly spiritual happening in your life that can be seen and known. And so, yeah, I think it's really important from a pragmatic standpoint. We're not talking about you running through a list of theology that you can check off those boxes and say, I know that, I can affirm that. That's part of it, but that then sort of drips down into a concentrate of actual livable action. And so faithful life means, in what ways does the good news of Jesus coming and coming again force me to live consistent with that confession in the real world? How do I orient myself around business practices? Is that something that is lived out in such a way that makes a big deal ultimately, or at least bows to the notion that Christ is coming again? The way I raise my kids, the way I spouse or remain married covenantally to my spouse. All of these things are normal life stuff that everybody does. But if you have legitimate faith in Jesus as coming Messiah, then your life takes on a very particular shape. So I don't know that it is as simple as saying, well, you do this and you do this and you do this and you do this. It's not as easy as just saying, well, shoot, you got to be X amount of hours a month at church, and you've got to make sure you tithe this much money, and you got to make sure you sing these songs. It isn't like that. I would say it's simply this. Are you eager, excited, enthusiastic, and is your world turned upside down by the gospel in such a way that other people can see it in the way that your conduct is lived out?
So if I meet Jordan Hall on the street,
Mm-hmm.
or at picking up coffee, or at the grocery store, or in the office, you're, no offense, but you're just kind of a normal looking dude, right?
I'm normal in every sense of the word.
You could fit into a crowd pretty easily.
Yeah.
What do I see? What do I see that's different than lots of people that are faithful to their spouses and raise nice, law-abiding children and follow certain societal expectations of good business practices and say, have a nice day to the cashier, that sort of thing. What do I see in you? What do you maybe see in me? What do you see in other people that distinguishes us from just other quote unquote good people in society?
Yeah. If all you were knowing of me is Jordan in passing, then nothing different, right? I would be the same Joe Schmo as anybody else on the street. If we had any sort of grace and opportunity to have any, real relationship, right? Where you got to know me and I got to know you and we interacted even maybe a few times, then hopefully, big hopefully, that my life of faith will be something that is sort of naturally drawn into our interactions with one another. I believe you would know about me what it is I both believe by the way that I interact with you, by the way I care for you and your family, by the way that I'm interested in your life, by the way that I carry myself in the public, by the way you see me around my own family. Like I'm a pretty outspoken guy. So I intend not only to leave, I intend to not leave any real mystery to who I am in Jesus, right? I like talking about that. I think it's important to declare it. I think it's important to give people opportunity to chew on it themselves. So most relationships I have are going to have an element where people are hearing the gospel pretty regularly, or at least experiencing it tangibly as they have any kind of rapport with me.
So you were talking about anticipation, and this whole series is anticipation. It's a longing for, right? Talking about like gifts at Christmas time and stuff like that, right? Is it acceptable? Because when we talk about being excited, you were talking about your daughter being excited about a trip when she was younger, just weeks in advance. She's packed, she's ready to go. Just everything is focused on this.
Yeah.
Right. I assume you were sort of saying that's what we're going for here, folks.
For sure.
Right. You didn't talk about you anticipating that trip at all. I assume on some level you looked forward to it. I mean, you talked about the fact that you were appreciating the fact that it was coming, and you didn't necessarily have the money for it, but it was being given. It was a gift, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is it okay to just kind of look forward to things as opposed to being quote unquote excited, right? I mean, I really try to shy away from the phrase mature Christian, because that sort of suggests that we've arrived somewhere in a reality we have to die to self and repent every single day. So
Right.
it's not like we just get to graduate straight there. But is it okay? Is it normal? Would it be expected for us to say, well, sure, I'm anticipating, I have a sense of longing, but I'm not jumping up and down and thinking about every moment of every day?
It's really interesting that you say that. And I would argue that yes, it is normal, but not good. And that lack of excitement is just evidence that we're becoming slowly and surely kind of more drab and more kind of, I don't know, I use the term beige a lot. Our imagination around what is coming just kind of continues to deplete over time, right? We're just not excited because this seems very normal to us at this point. I'd been to Hawaii multiple times. So I'm like, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be great. I'm excited about it. But, I got to plan for, making sure that our kids have all their stuff. I got to make sure I shop with enough, advance time so that I can make sure we have swimsuits and socks, and everybody's got everything. And I got to make sure that someone's going to be watching the dog. And so we allow normal life to steal all that excitement from us. Now, when I land there and I step off the plane, there is kind of a resurgence of that excitement that comes out, right? But leading up to it, we often just get in this rut. We just get in this place where we're like, well, yeah, I mean, I know it's coming and it's going to be great, right? Woo, like it's going to be awesome. But for now, the practicality of life, I still got to go to work and I still got to, make sure the bills are paid and everything.
So let me stop you there though, because some people are going to say, okay, I'm with you. I get it, right? I want to feel that. If I'd gone to you, when you were anticipating this trip and saying, Jordan, you should have the same excitement as your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't have necessarily just manufactured that, right? You
No.
could have maybe cognitively said, yeah, I should. I don't, but I should. Same thing for the person sitting in the pew that says, I don't disagree with you. I would love to feel that excitement. And I just kind of don't. We've gone back and forth with like emotion.
Yeah.
Right? We don't just want people to try to keep achieving these kind of mountaintop experiences where we will ourselves to be sort of this, fake sort of enthusiastic.
Yeah. That's
right. What do you say to the person that says, I want to be excited? I've got the head knowledge that this is a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
right? That it should be otherworldly. I'm just kind of in a, yay, it's coming, though of course it's great.
Yeah, there is a remedy to that. There really is. And part of it is plead with the Lord for it, right? Like, restore to me the joy of my salvation. That is the request. Hey, I want this. I can't manufacture it. I don't have it. Can you please give me the faith of a child that you love and I so desperately want to have? There's reason number one, right? The second is, and I would do this if we were going on a trip, like get online and immerse yourself in images of Hawaii. Watch videos of the beach in Hawaii. Call up your friends who just went there recently and allow their stories to wash over you over and over again. There is a distance that we have between us and our desired outcome. So plead with the one who can give you a changed heart and then immerse yourself in the story and experiences of what is sure and coming. And it definitely will begin to shape it. The further away you get from that, that's usually when you're just kind of,
Okay. So in your second point, you said, is that faithful life yours or is it borrowed? We're getting again into lots of different analogies. You talked about how people get into a rut,
mm-hmm.
right? They may see excitement from other people. They don't feel it themselves. They kind of try to gravitate towards that, or at least manufacture something that looks like that.
Right.
Right. The scripture passage is the story of the 10 virgins, oil in their lamps. 5 of them have the oil. Well, they all have oil. Some of them didn't bring extra.
Yeah.
Right. So we always get into some interesting, analogies and parallels and how do I apply this to my life and that sort of thing. What does it look like in the 21st century to be short on oil? What is that? Is there a parallel to that today of someone who is short on oil? Because we assume on some level they all did bring lamps and they all brought a certain amount of oil.
Yeah.
They just didn't bring enough. And again, we can't necessarily get into the mind of all the people there, but the moral of the story is, hey, you should have brought a little extra oil.
Yeah.
Right? What does it look like to be short on that today?
Yeah. Apostle Paul talks probably more than anybody about endurance, right? Talks a ton about it in Romans, particularly of being prepared and able, thankfully by God's grace, to run the race set before you, right? It's a long, arduous, continuous cause that you're involved in. And so I think it is safe to say that it is to not have oil or to not have enough oil. It's indicative of people who are not, like Jesus said, looking and counting the cost of what it means to follow him, right? Maybe they were raised in the church and they said, well, we kind of got an idea for how this system works. And, I did my confession and I was catechized and baptized and been to Sunday school, did all my stuff, right? So I kind of have a sense for the rhythm. I know how to scoot through this, right? You're not planning for endurance. You're just not. You're not planning for what well do I draw from when my wife leaves me? what well do I draw from when I lose my job? Like what do I do when I hit those real dry seasons where I'm just like, I don't even know if I buy this anymore. Where do I look? Where do I go? How do I endure that, right? How do I make it through that? We're not thinking like that. The ideals behind the not having enough oil is the people that didn't bring extra, what they're saying is, well, I'll bring enough, right? And it'll be great. And I'll light the lamp when the person shows up or whatever. They're not so fixated on seeing the bride and groom coming as being the centerpiece of their whole life that no matter what it takes, I got to make sure I have enough to see that moment, to be entered into that party. That's the thing. You got a lot of people out there who are just like, yeah, I mean, I go to church. I believe. I've always believed. I'm American. I'm supposed to be Christian. It's what we do, right? You have a lot of people that they're not excited really about the return of Jesus. They're not thinking that this is the apex to our whole life and story, that nothing else ultimately matters. It's all here in him in this moment. This is what it is. No one's thinking like that. Not no one, but not a lot. And so the reality is that if you're bringing extra oil, what you're saying is, I'm in the Word because I know that come Thursday of this week, I'm going to want to quit my job. I'm going to want to strangle my kids. I'm going to want to run out and pull out all my hair. I'm going to want to give up on everything. And I need the enduring Word, and I need the enduring power of the Spirit in my life to keep me steady, to keep me fixated on Jesus and his coming kingdom, and to just continue steadily plowing towards that end. So there has been an admonition forever for the Christian to bring extra oil, to constantly make this faith their own, to make it real, to fall on their knees, to fix their eyes on the prize and to keep going after it. And there are some that definitely do, and there are a lot who definitely don't.
So how do we'll just stay on the oil theme. How do we check our oil? In other words, it's easy for us to listen to these types of stories and say, yep, I get the gist of the message, and I'm sure glad I'm not one of those 5 that didn't bring enough oil, because I've got enough oil, and if I were in that situation, I would have enough oil. And those foolish people that didn't bring it, well, I don't know who those people are, but it's not me.
Yeah.
How do we check our own oil to realize, oh, wait, maybe I don't, or maybe we don't even feel like we need to go to the wedding feast? Like we say, as you said, I've done enough stuff. I served. I've done my time. I can just stay home now.
Yeah.
Right? You know, the bridegroom can come and get me. Whenever they show up, then I'll head over there. Right? But I'm not going to go sit outside and wait in anticipation. So how do we know where we are in terms of our oil level without just assuming?
Yeah. Well, first off, I think should be a clear indicator from the story, not from me, that if you are a person who has ever said, I did my time, or I've done this already once before, or many times before, or fill in any number of blanks, the bridegroom can come and get me. He didn't let people that were banging on the door in. You think he's leaving his own party to come and find you in your home? Of course not. That's a great temperature check. If you don't see yourself at as eager as you were at 15 and 20, as you are at 60 and 80, if you don't see yourself middle of life, early on in life, whatever, realistically, if you don't see yourself regularly being captured all over again by the good news of our gospel, if it's not in you, and we know what that is, right? Ask a 15-year-old boy or girl how they feel about their boyfriend or girlfriend. Oh man, can they just wax poetic for a long time about how they feel, and they're thinking seriously about giving their life to this person. The sun rises and sets behind them. If there's not a part of you at 30 and 40 and 50 and 60 that says, I still swoon hard for Jesus. Like, truth be told, like, I wake up in the morning and my heart just still pitter-patters for the one who has my soul. If you can't say that, if your history of faithfulness is, there was a time I did this thing, there was a time I once experienced this thing, or I went to a camp one year, that should be a clear indicator for there's not a real vibrancy. In the same way, Todd, if I asked you, hey, how are things going with your marriage? Well, a couple years ago, we went to Mexico for a weekend and had a great time, and she doesn't seem to be mad at me. We could at least agree that you're on neutral, just coasting, right? We wouldn't argue that that is white hot for your wife. We would say that's, you're surviving, maybe. Okay. That's not indicative of somebody who's got gallons of oil in his trunk just in case. So to check your oil is to just ask very normal human kind of emotional reactions to Jesus. Who is he to you? What comes to mind when you think of him? And not just, well, he's my ticket into heaven, but, oh, he is, as a deer pants for water, so my soul thirsts for you. Or do we talk about our Savior like this? Do we think of his coming in the manger and his inevitable coming again like this, where we're on the edge of a needle, and whether I get to live another 35 years or he comes tomorrow, all of that is a wash to me because I get Jesus? If that's not on your mind and in your heart, friend, know that there is a problem. Know that you are more than likely one of the 5 virgins who are out there just looking at the bottom of their oil canister going, I'm sure it'll be enough. And do something about it.
So speaking of enough, or sure it's going to be enough, this leads to the last question and the last point. In your last point, you said, if that faithful life isn't yours, would you make it yours today? You were talking about urgency, and you were also talking about not waiting too long. Besides being dead, what does waiting too long look like, right? Because we don't necessarily, we subscribe to the idea that a heart can be changed at any point. There is no place where we say, okay, we've gone too much to the dark side, we can't come back, right? Jesus' grace is sufficient for us. What does it look like for us to be waiting too long? Is that, do you mean just death? Like before you get hit by a bus tomorrow, or before, you're old, you have a heart attack, you drop dead? Is there are there other benchmarks to consider besides just exiting the earth?
Yes, there definitely are other benchmarks. And, especially those within kind of the Reform camp, we have a tendency to remove all human agency from kind of all the salvific experience, right? We just take our will, our thoughts, our hearts, our emotions, our connectedness. We take all that completely out of the picture. God can and will, which is true, sovereignly do anything and everything he wants. He'll save me even if I don't want to be saved. He'll endure with me even if I don't want to endure to be with him. And I would say, by and large, emphatically, yes, that's true. However, the Old and New Testament are wrought with do something. Draw a line in the sand. Choose this day whom you will serve. Repent and return. There are behavioral responses to the good news that are expected of us, right? And there does become at least a regular giving of warnings in the New Testament in particular that give weight to the notion that you can go too far. That sometimes there is a place you can get where there may very well not be a point of return here. And that doesn't mean that we can outdo Jesus. It just means that we can do an awful lot of damage, both to ourselves and to others, the further we kind of push back and the more that we, rebel against him. And so there is a real sense of caution about timeliness and about not letting our hearts get calloused and hardened. There's Peter refers to the searing of the conscience, which literally is talking about you continually believing something that is not true to the point you don't even know the difference anymore, that lies could be true to you, that you have no conscience left that bears witness to truth and falsity. So there is a point in which you can give yourself over to lackluster approaches to the faith. You can give yourself over to nonsensical, apathetic, kind of drab and dry life that will ultimately set a stage for you. And it's very hard to move that person at that point. So do I believe that God can redeem and save anyone? Yes. But if I can be so, bold as to say this, why do you want to bank on that? With all the grace that he's given you, with all the compassion, all the kindness, all the generosity, all the willingness to fight for you, why do you want to bank on that? Why is that the offering that you want to give? I'm going to give him the very least. And because he's awesome, he's still going to show up and show out for me. And he's still going to save me. He's still going to give me this eternal inheritance. He's still going to call me a child when I don't deserve it. But why would you want to, while you have breath, offer that life in return to him? That's what I would ask the Christian. Can we go too far? Yes, it is way too far. when you are willing to settle for a nominal life of faithfulness as a effectual offering to your King. That's going too far. And I would think it would. And I don't think you would disagree with me.
I wouldn't. Yeah. Hence the theme. What are you waiting for?
Absolutely right.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks again for joining us on Sermon Rewind. We'd love to have you join us in person. Join a part of our imperfect community on Sunday mornings at 10 for worship. We've got stuff going on Wednesday nights. We're here for dinner at 5:45. We will discuss this video at 6:30. And thanks for joining us on Sermon Rewind.
Have a fantastic week.